Over the course of 30 years, I have had 4 dreams. The first dream occurred back in the mid-80s. The second, third, and fourth dream occurred within the last 6 months of April 18th, 2013. That date, the fourth dream was given to me, as well as the interpretation to all 4 dreams. The second and third dreams I wrote down directly after they occurred. The fourth dream I recorded and implemented it into this audio recording. This first dream that I am about to describe is going to be from memory, but the memory has never left from that time back in the mid-80s. The first dream is as such. I walked into our childhood church. Near the back of the church is a room where the choir meets. It's a very small, cramped space, rather dark and somewhat cold. In the dream, I was carrying a friend of mine who I knew throughout high school. He was a blind individual with very frail body, frail legs, that sort of thing. I carried this person in my dream, but he was not the person that I remembered from school. He represented something else in the dream. I carried him in the back of the church, and he was dead. I carried him in my arms, and all of a sudden he turned and he looked at me. At that point, I could feel the fear going through my body. I still remember it to this day. I felt fear in my body whenever he looked at me with his black eyes. He jumped up out of my arms and ran into a dark corner, never to be seen from again, at least in that dream. And that was the end of dream number 1. The second and third dreams I have written down and I sent to my friends, so I'm going to read them verbatim and not depend upon memory, as these things were written directly after the dreams. The second dream reads, I had a dream that 2 men were talking to a woman. The men were black, one tall and skinny, one short and stocky, and both were wearing and acting like the gangland criminals I see. They were talking to a woman who was enticing them to kill me by promising them sex when they completed the act. They ran into my old church, doing mischief and harmful things. I knew what they really were, and I went to get them out. I saw the new pastor and his wife there. They were laughing and dancing a waltz. I had to tell them, but I knew that they wouldn't believe me. So I told them that they had 2 intruders and that they needed to get themselves and the people out of the church while I find them and get them out. They laughed and thought I was joking, so I left them there to dance. There was some type of church event that was bringing in people that wouldn't normally be there, so in my dream there was a sense of urgency to get them out before the big event. I saw a childhood friend of mine, Terry, there, and I told him why they were trying to kill me. It was because I was healing the sick and casting out devils. Terry believed me, and we went back into the area of the church where the choir gathers before they go into the sanctuary. Now this is where, in the first dream, that first frail person woke up and ran off. We both looked for them. I knew that they were there. In this choir gathering area, there is a ladder that leads up to where the organ pipes are. I started to head over there, leading the way with Terry right behind me. They ran down the ladder and out the door. This is where the dream ended. The third dream reads as such. I came to what I believed to be another church. I was quickly greeted by the pastor there. This was just before a service. The jacket that I wore was taken, and I put on a black robe, which reminded me of a choir robe, but with no insignia or design that represented any church denomination. I was quickly given a tour where I saw the main sanctuary and parts of the building. In one part I saw another sanctuary. It had stained glass and pews, but did not have any power, and it was cold. I asked about this, and the woman giving me the tour said that it wasn't used much, or was used only when they were busy. Then I was led into the main hall. Before I went in, I was given a long trench coat which covered my robe. I can remember that my hands were, for some reason, bound. The main hall was a theater, small but more frequently used. There were a few people seated, but many seats were emptied. And the minister that was on stage in casual clothes, jeans, and a black shirt. I was seated 3 rows from the stage and near the center between 2 people that just seemed to stare with light smiles, polite and light. It was at that time another minister came in. 2 members of the congregation, rather rednecky looking, looked at him and were upset that he was there. This intruder had jeans and a white shirt. One of the rednecks that spoke got up out of his seat, moved over by him, and sat behind him and off to his left. And off to his left. The member of this church didn't take his eyes off of him, basically eyeballing him. It was at that time that the service was over. I tried to take off the trench coat, but I couldn't get past what were now handcuffs. I had to take off the coat and my robe in my seat. After this, I went into the lobby where I was about to leave. It was at this time I saw the minister in black shirt talking to a woman who I understood worked at this church in a needed administrative role of some kind. This minister was concerned as she was going through some type of problem that was grave. This woman was white, in her early 30s, had long straight black hair, and was in a ponytail. After I witnessed this, I had to leave the church since services were over. I knew that I had something to say or do, but was disappointed that I didn't do it. The 4th dream has basically been put down in an audio recording, and I'm going to insert it in this part as it reads verbatim, and I will not try to remember it at this time. Okay, this is a recording of a dream that I had on the morning of April 18th, 2013. And since God has become more a central part of my life and everyday actions and doings, I figured that all dreams that are this detailed I need to record, is simply because it's maybe a message from Him. The dream starts off as such. I am in a place that starts with a G. I want to say Gallatin or Gilman, but in any place it is at a factory setting where lots of jobs are held. I've been talking to a woman who I believe to be a human resources director. She's young, she's in her probably early 30s at the eldest. She has brown curly hair, sweet face, but she is complaining about the fact that workers usually don't take their job seriously. They work, but then they have like an afternoon off or something like that, but then they have to come back late in the evening. And she said that a lot of workers she has a hard time with because they don't take their job seriously, because they will go and work and then they will leave and then they won't come back. She said that it's a real problem there. Well, I told her, I said, well, that's not good. They shouldn't be doing that at all. And she was, really interested in the fact that I was saying that these people should be doing better instead of leaving their jobs, because, jobs are needed. And she asked for my name and started to know more about me, and I told her that I had filled out an application there quite a long time ago, but that I didn't get a call. And she looked up the app and that sort of thing and said that she would get back to me. I told her my phone number, made sure that she had all the relevant information, so I left. The next scene I was in a cafeteria scene, and usually whenever I have these in my dream, they're either the S.M. Rissler cafeteria, my elementary school, or they are the cafeteria at Missouri Western State College, at the college that I went to at the time, a university now. This was the Rissler scene. And I was sitting there eating sandwiches. There were 2 pieces of bread that had ketchup in them. Silly. But in any case, I was eating them, and there was a man sitting at a round table. All the tables were white and round, and they had these 70s-like scoop egg chairs. And And the man who was there, I can remember thinking that I didn't want him to know that I was there for some reason. But in any case, the woman came back in. She sat at the same table as the man, or no, actually at another table across from me. But she had her head down and she sort of was looking through her papers. And she said that she knew that I would be making a drive, but that with what I was making now, for some reason she knew what I was making now at my present jobs, she said that she could offer me $25 more. And I had to laugh at this because I was thinking, okay, that's not much at all. And whenever she was saying that, she was looking down and looking at the corner of her eye at me, and didn't want to make too much eye contact with me at that point. I got the feeling that in the dream that she knew that she was kind of giving me a bad deal and just didn't want to see my rejection. Well, I told her that I would think about it, but in any case, I knew that I wasn't going to take it because it was, only even if it was $25 a week, it would only amount to $100 more a month. But I would have had to have drove a lot longer distance, that sort of thing. In any case, we switched to another scene, and I am with my wife and Matt Remus, our choir director, our high school choir director at the time, and we're in the church, the First Christian Church here in town. And I have found like a pop gun, like an air gun, the BB guns or something like that you would pull the stock down or whatever several times to get more air. But this was a real looking gun. But I knew that it didn't have any harm, but that it was real. And I was carrying around with my left hand. And Matt Remus saw me coming with it. And of course my wife was with me. And he looked at me and was laughing like he usually does. He says, "Is that real?" I said, "No, it's not real." And then there was Ryan, who is a board member at the animal shelter that I'm working at. And he looked at me and was somewhat alarmed and said, "Is that real?" And I said, "No, it's not real. Don't worry about it." And I was admiring the gun, that it was nicely polished metal, and the wood was nice looking. I mean, it really did look like a gun, but it had an interesting feature that the more that you would pump it, there would be a vibrato on it. A vibrato on the air gun. And I was pumping the thing up and then pulling the trigger just to pop it. And I can remember trying the vibrato on level 1. And the vibrato function would pop the air continuously, but it would be a do 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 do. I mean, it wouldn't be anything more than that, and I knew that it had to be faster because a slow vibrato is a bad one. Something's wrong. But in any case, we were making our way towards the fellowship hall at the church, and my wife told me that we needed to get some type of cleaner to wipe up the oil spots all over the parking lot, to clean them. And I looked at her and I thought that she was crazy. I said, "Sonia, that's just too much. I mean, why go through all the work? It's just going to get oiled up again." But she was very adamant about it. She wanted that done, and she wanted me to pay for it. And I told her, I got really angry with her. I said, "No, I'm not paying for it." I said, "If you want to pay for it, you're going to pay for it out of the money." But I knew in the dream that the money was coming from me. So if she was paying for it, it meant that I was paying for it. And she was adamant about it, and I took my air pop gun and had it in my hand in a threatening manner. I said, "You're not paying for it." I said, "Things are going to be the way that they are," and that sort of thing. And she was adamant. She wouldn't stand for it. So she was going out and doing that. She was going to go out and get the cleaner. And I remember the cleaner was like a liquid and sawdust mix. It was like thing you would put on an oil spill, like kitty litter or something like that. but it was in I saw yellow little plastic containers that it was like yellow liquid or something to that effect, but it came out in that fashion and worked the same way as that kitty litter to soak up the oil spills. She was going to get it. I was chasing after her with the gun. I never pulled it on her, but I was chasing after her. I tried to grab her left arm from behind, and I tried to bite it. I tried to bite her. And I can remember thinking, this is odd behavior coming from me, that I shouldn't be this angry towards her. I mean, she's wanting to help and that sort of thing. I chased her while she was going in the sanctuary, ran into the sanctuary, and of course, in the dream, she just disappeared. She wasn't there anymore. She was someplace else. And I saw my table set up that I usually have at Wesley United Methodist during a Sunday service, and it had the projector and it had the laptop, and I saw it there at the First Christian, which I thought odd because the setup that I usually run there would not work at First Christian, but it was there anyway. And there was a person in the pulpit who was speaking, who was kind of scummy looking. He was bald and had a long, dirty brownish beard, like a dirty blonde beard. And he was in like a sleeveless light gray sweatshirt. And he had Hawaiian pants on. I mean, the first thing that I thought was that he was just looked sketchy, looked like a scumbag. And he was a little person. And I remember coming in there, trying to get the setup organized and something, if I was going to tear it down or if I was going to make it better or whatever, but I was working with the setup. And here comes this little Hispanic child in Hawaiian pants and a denim jacket, dark hair, dark complected, that sort of thing. And he had a soccer ball in the sanctuary, and he was kicking it hard, and running real fast. And he kicked it between the pulpit and the table where the plug-ins were and knocked the laptop over. And I remember being very upset, and the little kid didn't care. He just continued doing that. And I remember grabbing the kid who was being a bit of a disruptance in there, that I didn't want him doing that. I said, just calm down. I said, don't do that. And the man came down from the pulpit, and he was a little person, and he was very upset that I grabbed one of his kids. And let's see, there were other people that came in there, and they were all little people, kind of various sizes, but they were all little people, and they were all like Hispanic in origin, dark children, that sort of thing. And they were upset that I grabbed the kid. They were all kind of converging on me. And it was at that point that the dream ended. And here I am saying it now. So that was the dream.
I thought that the dreams were of a personal nature, that they had to do with me. What I now realize and what God has given me through His Son Jesus Christ is this interpretation. These 4 dreams, these 4 accounts represent the church in general, the church age that we are in right now, that Revelation speaks about in chapter 3, verses 14. We are in that church right now. The first dream happened roughly around 30 years ago, around the 80s, in which the frail person represents Satan. Satan has been let loose into the church, but he is hanging around in the background, remaining unseen and unnoticed. In the second dream that I had with my friend Terry, we both knew that something was going on in the church, but the heads of the church at that time, they were oblivious to it at all. They didn't want to do anything. They were dabbling in something that satisfied themselves, hence the waltz. And the people who were applauding and clapping were the congregation that were being led in this thing. They were the woman who was seducing the two, were the these were devils that were in the background, but they were starting to cause mischief. But at that time, they were just in the background, becoming more bold. And my friend and I went in and cast them out, and they ran. In the other dream, the dream of the other church where my hands were bound, this is the one dream that I know that I did not represent myself, but the Christian in general, who is without denomination and who wears a black robe, a death to the present church, where we have come, hopefully, to do the acts of the real church. But my hands were bound. I could not do anything. And I almost believe that in addition to Satan binding the churches, the Christian, the true church's hand, we do it to ourselves. Hence, me sitting in the middle row and accepting what I'm hearing and not trying to struggle or get out. The rednecks in the third dream represent Satan. He is in the pews and he is watching. And the intruder represents the Holy Spirit. And the eyeballing that was going on and the accusation that was going on were the devils that were there in the congregation, in the very pews, being very open about sitting there. They were eyeballing the Spirit and keeping an eye on it. And my hands were being bound. The church in the third dream was more of a theater type of thing, more of a spectacle, a show of entertainment. And the old church that was there is a representation of the true church, the way that we were, but it's not being used. It's cold. There's hardly any light shining through the stained glass. There is no power there, and is not used unless it is an absolute emergency, and by then it's too late. The woman that is there with the ponytail, she is working within the church as an administrative role, but there is a grave problem that is not being ignored, and I was asked to leave. The person who had the possibility of being able to do something, and the person in that dream who had every intention of doing something, was bound at that point. The true church, the real Christian, Adam's rib, was being bound by not only my inability or unwillingness to act, but also by Satan as well. The fourth dream is very telling. The woman in the fourth dream represented Satan. Satan is making an appeal to me, saying the problem that he has and my need to be able to talk to Satan is a need to be able to solve, to sort of fit myself into this woman or Satan's scheme. I am doing this willingly. I am making an appeal to come and work for him, which is frightening. Me being representative of not myself, but the Christian. The Christian is willing to appeal to Satan to help him out willingly. And I give him, my willingness to be able to serve. But whenever Satan comes back to talk to me about the job at hand, he or she in this dream, Satan representing the woman, is unwilling to look at me, unwilling to make very much eye contact, and is keeping her head down in the papers, telling me that basically all I would be getting is a paltry, just nothing at all. And throughout my life, all of the things that I've done for God have given me great reward, both financially and everything, but working in the world has yielded nothing, and I've worked and toiled a lot harder. This woman in this dream is unwilling to look at me, and she is sitting away from the man in the dream. The man is representing God. Unwilling to do this, and I am unwilling to make myself known to the man, to God. I want to remain hidden from him and kind of keep the conversation on the down low. I don't want him knowing, but he knows. I got in the dream that there's no way that he couldn't know, but he's unwilling to do anything because I'm willing to serve. The sandwiches in the dream, well, if you've ever been poor, you have eaten bread and ketchup. So the sandwiches are representing filler. absolute filler with no nutritional value. They fill the stomach and make you feel better, but later on you're hungry. I remember the ketchup, just whenever I bite into it, spews down my hands. Poverty. Poverty is spewing down my hands, which are the work, to keep working. Poverty is being dripped all over my hands of work. And it's just a very, very frightening thing. The fourth dream represents my wife and places of work that are within the church, but are separate entities within the church. I paid more attention to Matt Remus, who represented my passions, my music, and that sort of thing. And I paid more attention to Ryan, who represented the 9-to-5 job, that sort of thing, as opposed to paying attention to where I was. I was in God's church. My wife represented the true Christian, the person who was wanting to do something to clear up the stains that were evident in the church's parking lot, the church that we are in now, the church of Revelation 3, chapter 14. She was wanting to do this, but I, being the Christian, with my pop gun that had absolutely nothing but was there for show and looks, had no bullets, nothing in there at all. I was trying to stop her, and my actions were violent towards her and violent towards anyone. I see this now. They are violent towards anyone who wants to stop and halt the processes of the church. She was leading me into the sanctuary, where the devils were now in the pews and in the pulpit right now. They were speaking. They were being very overt. They were disrupting things that were going on, running about, kicking the soccer ball, making a disruption and a spectacle. They knocked over the things that worked before, the laptop and the projector that worked at my church that I use in the waking world. They knocked it over, and the thing would not work. The technology and all of the things that we use now will not work in the church, the last church, the church of Revelation 3, chapter 14. None of it would work. Hence, Satan and his little kids knocked it over without even a thought. I still was able to restrain them and stop them. Satan came out of his pulpit, and all his kids were coming up from the pews, but they were gathered all around me, but they couldn't do anything, but I was restraining them, but I wasn't casting them out at that point. This is the horror at which we are in right now. We are in the last church, and I sense this, that Satan and all of his kids are in full control of the church. It has taken time, but they are in full control. We are in the process. The church, as we come to understand it, is being spewed out right now. It has already begun, and it's only the true Christian whose hands are not bound, who is not carrying a hollow weapon into the church, not carrying a weapon that looks good but that has power, that is able to rid this sort of thing. This is the horror that we are in now. We are in the last days of the last days. And I pray to God that someone hears this and can spread this to all the other Christians and all of the other ministers that are going on, that are heads of their church. This recording is free for absolutely anyone to share and to distribute to any of their churches. Take it for what it's will, but I have done what the Holy Spirit has commanded me to do, which is far better than what I did in my dream. Amen.